Also, a lot of my day now, I'm dealing with, some of you guys are probably Twitter friends or Facebook friends or whatever, social networking, emails, the messages that come to me are over 300 a day. I do try to get to all of them and to answer all the ones that I get to and see. I try to get to all of them. If you have not got answers from me, just keep bugging me because I will get back to you. My newsfeed now is 75,000 people, though it's very hard to keep track. Writing books. So, okay. It was 6 years of battling her addiction, of trying to help her through. But she, you know, it's a hard lifestyle to get out of. Eventually, there's a glass ends with her in jail on a trafficking charge. She got out, and they went back into the lifestyle. And then later, she went to prison for ID theft and check kiting and fraud, and basically the things they were doing to support their drug habit. And at that time, I just really needed to make some sense of this last 6 years of my life. And so I started Crank, first person from her point of view, to try to get inside her head. I didn't start the book for publication necessarily. I was trying to figure out stuff. And in writing the book, it became really clear that this is a story that I shared with a lot of people, especially in the West at the time. Now in the Midwest, this drug is a scourge in the Midwest and the Deep South. It was really almost exclusively on the two coasts at the time. But you know, the perception was that, you know, it only happened to bad people or Latino people or white people or whatever. And it's like, no, it happened to my daughter. And if it could happen to my daughter, it could happen to your daughter. And I really wanted people to understand that, you know, this is something that we fight from with education. You know, it's not the DARE program. This is about, this is a real face of addiction. So this book, published in October of 2004, did not go on to become an immediate Times bestseller. All my books now are on the New York Times bestseller list. And that is all about book sales. I was as an author, nobody knew who I was. You know, it's like now I have readers that will go, there's an Hopkins book coming out, and so the books will, you know, sell ahead. It was not like that at first. And this, you know, this was largely viral. You know, like she picked it up and she liked it, gave it to her friend, and her friend gave it to her boyfriend, and then pretty soon, you know, it's now required reading in many high schools. There are over 2 million copies in print around the world at this point, but that did not happen overnight. So I thought I should write another book. So I wrote Burned to explore what might bring a young woman to the brink of a shooting rampage. Columbine was behind us. There were other school shootings in the news at the time, and I wanted to look at what might bring a girl there, because always it's with boys at the trigger. And so that's kind of where this book started, and then it morphed into this other thing, because sometimes books do that to you, and your characters, like, they go, no, that's not who I am. This is who I am. This is why I'm doing this. And it's like, okay. So that's it. Ended up with the Mormon framework, because that character started to look like a friend of my younger daughter's who is Mormon and had weapons experience and like that. And so that's kind of where that came from. But the book is about a girl whose father's abusing her mother. She can't get help through her church or through school or whatever. And so she starts to act out. She starts to question her faith and her place in the wider world, acts out at school, gets in trouble, and her father, as a punishment, moves her out to eastern Nevada to live with an aunt on a ranch, where she meets the guy that would be her salvation, except for her father won't let that happen, because Hopkins books don't have happy endings. I told you I was trying to bring her to the brink of a shooting rampage. If she was going to live happily ever after with Ethan, then she probably wouldn't have ended up thinking about doing that, right? That book came out in January of 2006, also did not hit right away, but although it was nominated for the National Book Award that year, it did well kind of on, you know, that level. But then in January 2007, Impulse came out, and MySpace at the time was the social networking platform. Facebook wasn't even out there yet or anything, and MySpace featured the book. So 200 million people plus sign onto their MySpace pages, and that red book cover comes up with a good book review in back, and bam, my career took off. Thank you, MySpace. I appreciate that. Impulse, which is about 3 young people whose lives connect in a psych hospital after separate attempted suicides. Wanted to write teen suicide because I live in a small valley of 1,800 people, and I know you guys have lost some people this year as well. We lost 2 young people in that small community to suicide in 1 year, and one was the son of a friend of mine. And I really wanted to look at what would bring, I mean, you guys are the future, you know, it's like, God, every single one of you has all this potential. You just have to figure out where you belong and, you know, what it is and unlock that. And in a black moment, you know, it's gone, it's done, you know, it's like, to me, it's the most devastating thing ever. So I wanted to look at the why, you know, what could put a young person into that place where they would consider suicide. And so I'm very proud of that book. It remains a favorite of many, many, many people. Then Identical, okay, so the same year, 2007, that was January. By then, people are starting now to find more of want more of Christina's story, so you get Glass at the end of 2007. 2008 is Identical. The subject matter in this book is sexual abuse at the hands of a father. Incest. It's like a really hard word to even say or consider and think about. You know, and if you think about a father that would do that to one of his daughters, you probably get a picture in mind. In the book, he's a district court judge, and the reason I chose that is the reason I chose the topic is because I have 4 friends who it happened to. 3 biological fathers, 1 stepfather. The stepfather was a district court judge who put people away for the same thing. And I want to break stereotypes. I want to look at what a possible victim might look like and a possible perpetrator might look like. And I want to, the statistic here is depending on who's you look at, 1 in 3 or 4 girls, so 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 7 boys will be molested or raped by the time they're 18 years old. And you know, we have to allow them a voice. You have to tell. So if you look, at least a couple of you, several of you will have had that happen to them by the time they're 18. You need to talk, you need to speak up sooner rather than later. It's hugely important that you step forward. And this book, I hope, will encourage people to step forward and say, I need help. All right. Flirting with the Monster is a collection of essays about Glass. So it's 8 YA authors talking about theme and story. It's a drug counselor and a drug court judge talking about how the books reflect what they see every day, and then 5 written by my family. So you get the real story from me, my husband, Christina, her sister, and Hunter Orion in real life, who at 11 years old came up with his essay, which was how her choices when she was 16 built his life, even though she's not in his life. I thought that was rather brilliant, especially considering he doesn't show the same brilliance every single day now. Fabulous. Tricks, teen prostitution. This one, because I came across the statistic that the average age of a female prostitute in the U.S. is 12 years old. What skews that statistic young is trafficking very young children in here from other countries, generally to work as prostitutes. But, you know, I come across something like that and I go, I want to know why. This one's about 5 kids from all different parts of the country who end up on the streets of Las Vegas turning tricks. Spent 2 weeks with Las Vegas Vice talking to young girls in front of all those pretty big casinos. Girls 12, 13, 15 years old out there turning tricks. I don't want to see any of you on the streets of Vegas because it is not a pretty life, I can tell you that. You know, we have romanticized prostitution in books and movies and stuff. It is not a romantic life. It's a horrible, hard life. And some kids come there for something as simple as wanting to finance a pair of designer jeans. Not a good reason to start turning tricks. Fallout, which is the final book in the Crank trilogy, only from the points of view of her 3 oldest children. So here's where she is today. She's 33, she has 6 children. Only the youngest 3 live with her. So we adopted Hunter Orion. The second one, when Crystal went to prison, went to live with her aunt. They cut off communication. We just found her through Facebook. We haven't, after almost 9 years, we didn't know where she was. So we have reconnected after almost 9 years. The third one, on the day they sent Crystal to prison, I get a phone call, you have to come get this baby. And I'm like, what baby? Because I didn't even know she was pregnant. She delivered her 3rd baby. They handed me the baby and they sent her to prison for 2 years. I had the baby until I tracked down her father, was a different